So when you heard this year's theme was frontiers, how did you come to this specific topic?
In past years for History Fair, I always do a specific person or a specific event, but I wanted to challenge myself and broaden my scope a little bit more. So this year I decided to, instead of picking one thing, to tackle the entire thing, and that's how we kind of got here.
I guess I have a comment more than anything. I found it very moving. American racism is my field of study, so this brought me to tears. It was very well.
Thank you so much. Like, actually, thank you. That's why.
I did have one question. Your outfit, was that influenced by the Little Rock Nine? Because especially with the glasses, I've seen a picture that looks similar to that. Or was that in Mississippi?
The outfit is generally from the 60s. My mom grew up in the 60s. She helped me pick everything out. So with the glasses and the dress, she helped basically pick everything out. It was just based on 60s time period in women's fashion during that time.
Out of all the sources you put together in your bibliography, what do you think was the most important to connecting the history of these events to the modern day of these events?
There was a specific resource, I believe it's even on the front page or the second page. It was about a witness who saw Martin Luther King's assassination. And I noticed between the parallels of that and last year I did LGBTQ activism, so I noticed in the Stonewall riots at that time there were a lot of similarities, and then in the current fights today for abortion rights and all affecting women's bodies, there have been the same kinds of actions happening at these protests, and it's basically just reoccurring each time. So that resource about the witness definitely helped me connect to the time period, because a lot of the pain that we feel now is the same exact pain that they were feeling back then. So.
Was there anything you found in your research that surprised you or that maybe you didn't expect to find?
I'm an avid reader. Like, I read a lot, especially when I was in like 5th and 6th grade. And I've always been interested in civil rights activism. So I knew about Malcolm X and the Martin Luther Kings and the Ruby Bridges. I think the biggest surprise to me was the fact that there were Black people at that time period who didn't want integration. They were completely against integration, such as even big figures like Malcolm X. They were like, no, we don't want this. Like, actually, we would really rather be separate. And so yeah, I think the opposition from inside being in contradictory with like the big movement at the time, that was the biggest shock to me, that there were people who opposed it.
In your own words, say how would you describe the theme?
The theme, frontiers in history, people, places. I see a frontier as, you have the actual definition of a frontier being something, that frontier is like a border. But I see a frontier as an action or a cause, something that stipulates something that starts something that causes a ruckus, gets people a little bit antsy and gets them, I see it as, like, that's basically how I see it, as something that starts something else, that lights the match to create the fire. And that's really what I was basing the whole theme off of when I looked at my projects.
You managed to take the 50s and the 60s and visualize it, number one, and then you managed to relate that to another source, Mexican American, you mentioned that as
Yes.
well. Then you managed to relate that to present day. And I thought that was just absolutely amazing. Your script was impeccable.
Thank you.
Flawless. And you did an amazing job on that. I would ask that you just give a little context on gaslighting. I noticed that you used that a few times. Can you just give a description or just give a little bit more context on gaslighting?
So gaslighting in modern day definition, I'm pretty sure it existed a while ago too, but now gaslighting is, somebody trying to make you believe that you're crazy for something you know to be true, or that, So in the script, I used gaslighting a lot more in a metaphorical form, as like Black people should have these rights and should have these abilities as they're listed in the Constitution for all Americans, for everybody else, so why don't we? The gaslighting, which was the tricking of thinking like, of telling them like, no, you can't do this, actually, you're not allowed to be here, you can't sit here, I don't know why you're here, colored boy, you can't sit here, this ain't your train car. Even though he was already there, he's like, I have a right to sit here like everybody else should. Ruby Bridges being in the back of the bus and being gaslit into believing that she couldn't sit there either. Like, it was just, that's what, I use gaslighting as more metaphorical, in a more metaphorical sense, sorry.
Again, how you use that context to relate it to the 50 and the 60. Once again, it's amazing.
Thank you.
How did you go about your research for this project?
I'm always browsing the internet, looking at things. I'm always looking up things. I ask questions. I'm always running my mouth. So, I started looking at Twitter, actually. Definitely not a reliable source. I couldn't cite it or anything. But I got a lot of opinions and things to look for, like looking through people's voices. Like I cited Kimberly Jones in my bibliography. The video, I had seen the video on Twitter at first and found a video of it on YouTube. So it was things like that. Like I went through social media and asking my friends, like if I was doing a performance on civil rights, what would you want to see? You know, like what do you wonder about Black Americans that you know, what's a question that you've always had? Because consistently in teaching and in school, we're being taught the same exact things about our history, and now there are laws even preventing some specific things being mentioned. So I just feel like it was an opportunity for me to be able to let people know about my culture and where we all started, where all started.
Were the, I don't know if you expanded on it or if I missed it, the paratroopers, and the Japanese balloon fires, I wasn't familiar with that. Did they actually set fires in the United States that they went and put out, or were they just training to do that?
They were a part of the task force mission to put out fires caused by Japanese explosives. Like there were people on the front lines who were being sent out the country. They were never permitted to go outside of the United States. They were meant to stay here because really Black people weren't even fighting in any of the wars or in the Air Force or doing any of those things. So they were given a special, very top secret mission. They weren't allowed to tell anybody that this is what your job is. And as long as you do it good, you can keep doing it. So.
There was actually a couple of Japanese balloon bombs that did land in the United States. One killed a family on the Oregon coast, but I don't think there were actually any fires or explosives involved. Just to answer your question. Any other questions? All right,
Thank you
so
very much.
much.